Guys, Brad Danger here, and this is it. Your last shot to win my 700 horsepower flame-spitting Bayside Blue GTR plus $10,000 cash. Right now, we have a mega multiplier and it's live, but once this ends, it's gone forever. Grab a shirt, grab an It's Lit sticker, or if you don't have time to shop, just grab a quick entry pack and bam, just like that, you are entered. Guys, it's the final days. This 700 horsepower GTR and $10,000 cash could be yours, but only if you get entered. So click the link down in the pinned first comment and get entered before time runs out. Breaking news, the used sports car market is a shell of its former self. Cars that you could once count on to be on Facebook Marketplace for around 5K have just vanished. But I know, you psychotic little car guy, you, just like me, there's nothing that will stop you from finding a cheap ride that'll dust whatever machinery you encounter at a stoplight. And I'm guessing that's why we found ourselves together at this very moment. Because, well, today we're gonna go over 8 cars that will maximize tuning potential without maximizing your budget. Okay, your wallet. In no particular order. Up first, we've got the E90 E92 335i. Now, there's really no denying the post-mortem tuner comeback that these things have had in the last 10 years because, my God, every single car meet has got to have at least one of these things that everyone is scared of. And there's a very simple reason for that. They love to be modded. I mean, something like a 335i that comes from the factory with turbos, yes 2, is essentially just begging for you to find out how hard you can push that N54 straight 6. And that's exactly what 335i guys have done. Upgraded fuel pumps, ECU, and maybe a step up in the turbos have gotten folks 100, 200, and even 300 horsepower gains for just a couple $1,000. And because the stock 335i's were making around 300 stock horsepower in those days, we're talking big numbers, boys, like 400 to 600 horses. Those are numbers that can make R8s and Huracans bite their tongue. But what is truly of note with the 335i is their price. Though they aren't quite as cheap as they used to be, my friends, this is what you can get for $7,600. This one has less than 100,000 miles on it, a 6-speed manual transmission, which we all love to save the manuals, and hence why you can snag this T or any other T up here, and it has a clean slate for shenanigans. If you took another $2,500 or so and bought some bolt-ons, you could easily be making 450 horsepower for 10 grand total. Plus, at the end of the day, you got yourself a car that was a symbol of luxury of the late 2000s. More importantly, not something that you're gonna dread having to drive home at the end of a tiring day. BMW guys, you actually might be onto something here, and I never thought that I would say that. And if you want to learn how to negotiate like a pro and make money driving ideal cars, well, check out our brand new workshop. It's completely free, linked in the first comment below. Up next is the Supra sedan that never was, the spicy little Lexus IS300. So, why do I call it a Supra sedan? Well, it's got a 2JZ, folks. And if there is one engine of the past 30 years that screams, "Tune me," it's the 2J. And yes, I know it never came with a turbocharged version of the 2J that everyone loves to drool over, and most Toyota Lexus guys will tell you that the mods that you can do without turbocharging it won't be worth the money, but you will have the reliability. And while my heart says, no, you can still see my great gains, my brain has to agree for the most part. However, there's always a catch. And this is important. The IS300 is so cheap that you could probably afford a turbo kit and install it for a reasonable budget. Here's what I mean. TLDR, pick up a stock IS300 like this for just over 6 grand, which is extremely affordable considering the overly priced state of the market. And then, if you can swing a little more than $2,500 for this really solid CX Racing Turbo Kit, bam! Just like that, you have a turbocharged 2JZ IS300 sleeper. That will make some serious power, all for 10K or less. Of course, if you need to upgrade the transmission, rear end, or something else, that's gonna run you a little bit more money. But this platform with a turbo kit for 10 bands is one of the few truly affordable and incredibly fun chassis that you can still enjoy nowadays. In fact, this might be one of the best combos on this list. Or wait. Trombones incoming! Yes, I know it's a cheap joke, but I don't care because no matter the number of VQ jokes you can make, it will never take away from how genuinely amazing the 350Z is when it comes to modifications and tuning potential. This car is the prince of the 2000s retro styling era, and a legend of racing media from NFS to FNF, and a million more. It really is a cult classic turned mainstream icon, and that makes it ideal, with a capital I. Yes, who's watching this that has a Nissan Z? Pfft, love it? Hate it? I don't know how you could. Let us know down below. And if you're looking to buy any of these rides, well, use Auto Tempest. It's what we use here. I've linked in the first pinned comment below, and you can get an insane deal on an insane tuner. Now, the 350Z's VQ35DE V6 engine, despite getting a ruthless rap on social media nowadays for what many consider to be a shitty exhaust note, is a wonderful base for making power. And the vast, and I mean vast, aftermarket scene for this car will help you do whatever you could possibly dream of. Popular recommendations include stuff like a short ram performance intake, a high flow exhaust, a test pipe. What, a test pipe? Really? And higher flow plenum spacer. Altogether, with a decent tune, these mods could net you 50 plus horsepower without having to take the whole engine apart. Ideal! And if you can find good budget parts, all in, that shouldn't run you more than $2 grand. And if you're willing to spend a little bit more on stuff like injectors and a really nice ECU, well then you could have well into the 400s. But of course, there is a lot more juice that you can squeeze from a VQ with stuff like new internals, forced induction, and a better fuel system. Guys have gotten anywhere from 500 to 700 on insane stuff like that. But that's all super expensive and not needed for a street car. And the real reason the 350Z is on this list is because it's super affordable and definitely abundant on the used car market. I mean, check this out. Here's a completely stock 350Z for just over $7 grand. We're talking 287 horsepower from the factory, a tossable and engaging chassis with some of the best looks of its generation. Seriously, go get yourself one before someone else snatches it up and crashes it trying to drift on a roundabout. Now, you guys know I love the 350Z, but don't get me wrong, I love the Audi B5 S4. The B5 S4, all horniness aside, is a car that combines one of the most timeless designs, the best chassis engineering, and one of the coolest engines out there all into one little German sedan, even though those engines are a bitch to fix. To me, it's sophisticated tuner car hero, and there are few cars in this world ever that are as unique as this thing. We're talking twin turbo V6 from the late 90s and early 2000s, which by itself is out of the box. Then we've got world-beating Audi Quattro all-wheel drive system. Then you have a 6-speed manual transmission. I mean, come on. And by the way, if you thought V6s didn't sound good, think again. These things can handle 500 horsepower and maybe a little bit more if you're lucky. Stock internals, which is a huge help for your wallet. And the car itself, well, it's pretty easy on your wallet too. This beautiful dark blue 2002 S4 is a perfect example for what you could expect, and all for $7,500. And it's already got all the mods you see here. With a couple grand more in engine mods, this could be a serious problem for anyone trying to roll up next to you. But hey, all-wheel drive and 4 doors isn't for everyone, but you should like it. And that's exactly why the Mazda Miata exists. It's always the answer, isn't it? It's the classic 2-door, 2-seat front engine rear-wheel drive sports car layout that we all crave from time to time. You know you do. And it doesn't get much better than this. But more specifically, we're picking the NB Miata, the 2nd generation, mostly because it's incrementally better than the most popular NA and much cheaper than the bloated NC. The cylinder head design was improved for the NB generation, and that means more power and more tunability. It's truly a Goldilocks Miata. You can go simple with upgrades like injectors, exhaust, and intake, or you could go forced induction. And well, which, believe it or not, some NBs actually came with forced induction factory, called the Mazda Speed. Because while most people think turbochargers are the answer when it comes to boost, the NB might actually be more suited for supercharging. You see, the NB's engine is more inclined for high revs, so you don't necessarily need something to bolster its top end. Instead, a supercharger kit will beef up that low to mid-range power that it lacks and creates an incredibly linear rev range. And of course, much more power. In fact, people on forums have reported over 300 horsepower from the smaller 1.6-liter engines with the supercharger. And that's in a car that weighs like 2,300 pounds. That's a rocket ship. But of course, there are some builds that have gone off the rails with power like this guy that has over 400 horsepower on a 1.8 liter. And while crazy builds like this will cost into the thousands, the NB itself will help you save a ton of money on the initial spending. Take this stunning red 2001 NB for example that sold for just $5,400. And while mileage doesn't matter on every car, the Miata is one of the best on this list when it comes to reliability. So don't be afraid to touch one with more than 100,000 miles on it for your budget. Our next pick continues the Miata's mantra of great things come in small packages. Just like my girlfriend tells me, because it's the Dodge Neon SRT-4. These are some of the most underrated cars out there in my opinion. In fact, most of the cars in its class at the time are the coolest that the early 2000s had to offer, period. Small, brightly styled cars like the Ford Focus SVT, the Nissan Sentra SER Spec V, and the Mazda Speed Protege. But the Neon SRT, according to a period comparison test from Car and Driver, was the best of the bunch. Its sharp response, incredible stock power output, and balanced chassis made this a top pick back then and a top pick today. But that's only part of the fun with the SRT-4. Its tuning potential was found immediately once people realized what was under the hood. A single turbo inline-4 with beefy stock internals. Say less. A turbo upgrade, an ECU flash, and some other little things have gotten guys to 400 horsepower on stock engines all the way back in 2005, just like decades ago. And that'll be way more than enough to blow the paint off the pavement. And as always on this list, the best part is the car's price. You can find examples like this one for around $7,700. And if you can find one that needs a little bit more work, it'll probably cost $5-6 grand easily. That means more money for more mods as far as I'm concerned. But some of us just need a little bit more muscle in our lives, don't we? German muscle, that is. And this is the W204 Mercedes-Benz C63 AMG. It's a mouthful, and it has a big honkin' V8 that looks the part and plays the part. From the factory, these bad boys were making 451 horses, which is already a really fast car. But this is one of the few on this list that can really take the fight to modern supercars when tuned. Guys like this have gotten nearly 600 horsepower with just a tune and an exhaust system. And yes, this one will run you past the truly cheap budget we've been following here, but you get so much with this bigger price tag that it's honestly worth it. For around $25,000, you could find yourself in this. This black on black example has a few mods including wheels, springs, and shocks, but there's so much more for that money. Remember, this is a Mercedes-Benz AMG here, folks. We're talking top of the food chain in German muscle sedans. Those muscular AMG cosmetics, that dreamy exhaust note, and that three-pointed star emblem. All ooze class. Easiest way to look rich for not a lot of money. And that's why it's called the C-Class, for courageous. Well, not really, but because that 6.2-liter V8 is so good stock, you won't need to spend much more money getting this thing to supercar levels as Slayer. Okay, I have teased you guys enough about the muscle car talk, so here is your reward. This is the true red-blooded American you've been waiting for, the 4th gen Mustang SVT Cobra, aka the Terminator. The 4.6-liter V8 that came stock on these bad boys were no joke. 320 horsepower in the 99 model and around 390 for the later models until 2004, when they were terminated. And similar to the AMG, these are extremely capable in stock form. They are powerful, have really strong internals, and are the only Mustangs before the S550 to come with, say it with me, independent rear suspension, so they actually don't crash into crowds. Psych! But, of course, you want to make this snake slither faster, and you can make the crocodile hunter proud, because these are some of the many options you can choose from. These motors tend to like superchargers more than turbos, since, well, they all came with a root-style blower. But folks have tried turbos and made insane power, like this guy. But the supercharger seems to be the most reliable and cheapest way to make power in these things. With a new pulley, some cams, and maybe an intake, you could easily see 500 good old ponies. That's on a bad day. I mean, this guy got to 450 from just a pulley, an exhaust, and a tune. Of course, with a bigger blower and a couple more swipes of a credit card, you could see much bigger numbers. But then you'd have to start discussing new internals, and that isn't in my ramen budget. But what's not out of budget, surprisingly, is the Terminator itself. This 99 model sold for just over $14K and had super low miles. This is a little bit more bread than some of the other cars on this list, but this super cheap tuning potential is unmatched in the SVT Cobra, and I bet you could find one that needs a little bit of work for cheaper than this one. But no matter your preference of car, now you know it's not that hard to make insane power for bottom dollar. So which one of these is your ideal pick? For me, it's gotta be that Terminator Cobra, maybe the C63. Let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell. Check out some of these Ideal vids over here. I'm Brad, this is Ideal. We'll see you next week, and promise me one thing, keep living the ideal lifestyle.